Camera speeds.
Marker.
My name is Jazz Thornton and I am a mental health advocate, author and filmmaker. I think my life kind of took a really drastic turn at a very young age when I was 3 years old. At 3 years old, it was the first time I remember feeling pain, the first time I remember feeling shame. When I was 3 years old, it was the very first time that I was sexually abused. My child protection files name 3 different men. I didn't know at 3 years old the implications that would go on to have in the rest of my life, but it was significant. I started school and was getting bullied a lot at school. For a lot of my life, just kind of felt like I was a problem, like there was something wrong with me. And I had remembered, when I was 3 and all of this was happening, watching my biological dad leave and never come back. And I remember thinking, like, I've done something wrong, I've done something, and if I ever do anything wrong again, people are going to leave me. When I was 12 years old, I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is too much, this is too hard. And at 12 years old, it was the very first time that I tried to end my own life. I don't think I really understood the gravity of that decision I was making. At that time, I just wanted the pain to end. I just wanted everything that was going on to stop. Very thankfully, that didn't work. But I still got stuck in this cycle for a few years after that where school life was really rough and I just mentally was really, really, really struggling and started acting out a lot, had behaviours that were just really detrimental. But I didn't really understand what was going on. And so at 16, I was working at a fish and chip shop after school. I saved up and I made the decision to move out of home and move to not only a different city, but a completely different island. I caught a one-way flight. I enrolled myself in high school, and I got put on something called the Independent Youth Benefit, which is for young people who are no longer attached to their families. At 16, I was like, okay, if I leave my town, everything will be sweet, everything will be fine. Like, I just have to get out of this town and then I'll be okay. I realized very quickly I could run away from my town, but I couldn't run away from myself. Like, these beliefs that had built up from 3, from 7, from 12, they were still there. And very quickly in that first year, I ended up living in 14 different houses. I was on and off the streets. I was in and out of women's refuges. I was in and out of psych wards. And that is what the next few years of my life looked like. There was no stability. I remember waking up in the intensive care unit of the hospital after a suicide attempt, and there was no one on my next of kin, so they didn't have anyone to tell. No one had known that I was in the hospital. No one had known I was in a coma. It was just me. As a teenager, that was really, really hard to fight back with. There just didn't seem any point. Like, this was all that I knew from a young age. All that I knew was this pain, and you kind of get to a point where you're like, I have to be the problem. Like, mental health professionals and hospital staff start kind of treating you like you're just an attention seeker or you're wasting space, and you start to believe that wholeheartedly, that the world is going to be better off without you in it, that you're a burden, that you're unlovable. And I believed those to my core. I remember one day specifically, I had tried to take my life multiple times already, and I was like, this time it has to work. Like, I cannot do this. I'm out. And I made this plan. I wrote down my suicide note and I went into my doctor's office, and my plan was to be able to just get the things that I needed to make sure that I did the job this time and that it was done. And apparently my acting wasn't very good. I went in and my GP immediately, or my doctor immediately, knew that something was wrong. And I remember just the whole time staring down at the ground, and what was supposed to be like a 15-minute appointment turned into a 90-minute one of her being like, Jazz, what is going on? Like, I know something's wrong. And me just being like, not telling you anything. Like, I have this plan. I can't be here anymore. And then she said to me, she said, Jazz, you know that your illness is not your identity. There is hope for you. No medical professional had ever said that to me before. No medical professional had ever said that there was hope for me, and something in that moment made me go, hang on a second. If this medical professional was saying that maybe, just maybe, there's like an ounce that this is not who I am and this is just something that I'm dealing with, then maybe things can change. And she called the cops and I went into the psych ward. And in the psych ward, I wrote on about day 3 a note in my journal that was right next to my suicide note. And it was literally just, I don't understand why this medical professional, why this doctor has said that there's hope for me, but maybe if she believes that things can change, then I'm going to try one more time. I've got to try. That day is the day that I changed my mind, that I chose to fight, and I fought every single day from then to fight back for my life and to begin to realise that my illness was not my identity, that there were things that I could do to manage it, that it didn't have to be like that and it didn't have to end. And that was really confusing for someone who had always planned to not be here. When you live your whole life expecting that you are going to die and you're going to die young, suddenly turning 21 is really weird and you're still here. And then you're 22 and you're still here. And if I was to look back at my 12-year-old self, my 16-year-old self, who wholeheartedly believed things would never change, who believed that she was the problem, that she was unlovable, that this world would be so much better without her in it. I just wish I could shake her and be like, you survived the best way that you knew how to. And I think that younger version of myself hated myself so much because of the behaviours that I had and the way that I acted as a result of the trauma. But she did the bloody best that she could to stay here. People that are struggling, that feel like the world is going to be better off without them in it, that feel like it's too much, it's too hard, that things will never change. There are so many people that are proof that that is not the case. As long as you are still breathing, there is still hope for change. And you might not see that for 6 months, a year, 5 years, but eventually you will have a moment of, holy crap, I'm still here. And look at these things that I get to do. But the biggest and most strongest thing that you can do right now is to ask for help and keep asking until someone listens, because you're worth it.